Welcome to The Burning of the Midnight Lamp, where we are dissecting music history, album by album, and track by track. We have come to the 8th track on David Bowie's album Earthling from 1997. It's a track called I'm Afraid of Americans, written by David Bowie and Brian Eno. We'll start by listening to it, and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
Johnny's in America, no tricks at the wheel. No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. Johnny's in America, I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. Johnny's in America. Johnny wants a brain. Johnny wants to suck on the coke. Johnny wants a woman. Johnny wants to think of a joke. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. Johnny's in America. Johnny looks up at the stars. Johnny combs his hair and Johnny wants pussy and cars. Johnny's in America. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. God is in America. God is in America. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. Yeah, I'm afraid of America. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it.
And there we are. I'm afraid of Americans.
There we are.
Yeah, another great track.
Oh,
Absolutely.
fantastic.
It's also,
Stands out on the album.
It does.
yeah, it's one of the standout tracks. It's again one of the ones I'm used to listening to the live version and not this one. And I believe there's also a better version of it than this. That's on
There's
the album.
lots of versions of it,
Yeah.
at least. Yeah.
But one that is actually better than the one that ended up in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the live version is based on the single version.
It's a mix, I
It's a
think, of
mix.
the
We will
single version and the studio version.
get to.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it has a long story.
Starting back on, it's actually recorded during the Outside sessions, originally under the name Dummy, to different lyrics. The chorus was "I'm afraid of animals,"
Mm.
written
Yeah.
together with Brian Eno, as we mentioned. They didn't quite feel that it fit on Outside, so they didn't include it there. So it was originally recorded in Montreux in Switzerland in late 1994, completed in 1995 in the Hit Factory in New York. It also eventually evolved into the title Johnny Downloader.
Yeah, I think the chronology is a bit different. Dummy is from early '95, the Outside sessions in New York, as Eno describes in his diary of '95. And then the song was supposed to be on the soundtrack of the movie Johnny Mnemonic,
Yeah.
starring Keanu Reeves, which is based on a William Gibson short story. So there's probably some downloading there.
Well, it actually went under the name Johnny Mnemonic as well.
Yeah. So maybe Johnny Downloader is an earlier name than the one that ended up on the Showgirl soundtrack, because that's the first time this song was released. Was on the soundtrack of
He probably changed it from Dummy to Johnny
probably.
when it was for the intended for the Johnny Mnemonic soundtrack. That at least makes sense in terms of the similarities in the titles.
But two early versions are released, and one is the one on the Showgirl soundtrack, and there the lyrics are "I'm afraid of the animals," while Johnny Downloader was released in 2022 by Bowie on an EP and a Record Store Day physical release, I think. So which one of those is the oldest?
And is this
We don't know.
Is this I'm afraid of the animals? Some reference to Talking Heads? Animals?
I thought they were.
It's
afraid
not
of
so
music.
many songs that I can think of where you are afraid of animals, but David Byrne definitely is afraid of animals.
I would assume that the Johnny Downloader version came first, or the oldest one, because it was originally intended for that movie, and if that's the version they used then. But then it was later used in Showgirls instead, released in September 1995. So this there is actually a released version of this song. So in a way, it's a cover version.
Yeah, you can hear both versions, both Johnny Downloader and the Showgirls version is on Spotify, and it is the same song, but they are more sparse, more skeletal, and primitive.
The first version, the one that was called Dummy, Brian Eno took the drums from that track and fashioned something new together with Carlos Alomar, the guitarist on Outside, and the drummer Joey Baron, and they created the basis for We Prick You. It's a very different song.
Very different
Yeah.
song,
Hard to hear, but
No, but you can kind of say there are some similar elements.
Of course, it was then revised, and at least the lyrics were revised. It was developed further for Earthling, additional overdubs created by the band. Platy noted the composite version was created by pulling elements from different reels. I mean, the Outside was recorded on tapes, I think. So that this made it challenging or at least putting this together much more challenging than the much more digital version they had of the other songs of the album.
In Chris O'Leary's brilliant book on late Bowie, it's a Platy is quoted something about them being. There were supposedly so many overdubs and stuff made for this track. So when they were putting together the "I'm Afraid of Americans" Earthling version, they were sort of chopping away marble at the statue, just trying to get to the core and then structuring something out of it and then building with on top of that with overdubs. So it's a very special process.
Yeah, it certainly stands out in the sense it was. I mean, the history of it. Obviously, it was originally written for a different album, had been released before, so it follows a different storyline, you could say, than the rest of the songs on the album. I mean, the title "I'm Afraid of Americans," Bowie commented on that himself, and he said, "It's not as truly hostile about Americans as, say, Born in the USA. It's merely sardonic." And he talks about that he was traveling to Java when the first McDonald's went up there, and he was really upset about seeing the invasion of the American culture into something, completely different culture.
And there's still people that thinks that Born in the USA is a tribute to Americans. So
exactly, and these days you might really be afraid of Americans.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's a song that it is just as relevant today as it might have been back in the 90s, maybe with a different meaning to the title.
Yeah, this is a lot of stereotypical American. Wants cars and he wants coke and he's called Johnny. Of course, Bowie's written about Johnny before in Repetition. Where Johnny's not a nice guy. And the video for the single version with Trent Reznor is, of course, a lot of hostile Americans threatening our dear Brit walking around the streets of New York.
But he does sing right after "I'm Afraid of Americans," "I'm afraid of the world." So
That's true.
I always more picture this as a person with a lot of anxiety. Not especially towards Americans. Yeah.
And of course, God is an American, as he says.
Yeah.
No, I think the lyrics is funny and great and catchy.
It certainly is. And it was released as the 5th single from the album. So 5 out of 9 tracks was released as a single. Last single came in 14th of October 1997, but only in the US and Canada. It reached number 14 in Canada and number 66 in the US, which meant that it was actually the first Bowie song to chart on the Billboard Hot 100 in 10 years. The last one had been Day In, Day Out in 1987. And it was his last in his lifetime. Reached the list.
What a stupid list. Come on.
The single did not include the album version or an edit of the album version at all. It only contained mixes. Something it actually has to come in common with Telling Lies in that sense. So 6 remixes in all on the same single, or more an EP, you could say.
It's over 40 minutes.
Yeah,
it's longer than many albums.
Yeah. 5 of them by Nine Inch Nails, and the last one by Photech. So all just numbered V1 to V6, version 1 to version 6. Photech has version 5. We have Ice Cube on guesting on version 3, I think it is.
Yeah, version 1 is the version that was made into a video, and it was shortened with an edit, and there's also a censored version of the edit. Version 2 is a mostly instrumental, vortex-like hypnotic track by Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, and version 3 is with Ice Cube, shouting things like "TV got your brain" and "Shut up and be happy," and attacked by slogans, and it's a great track as well. And the fourth is ambient to the point of almost inaudible, drowned out sounds, very scary and very cool. And Photex one is a drum and bass mix. And then version 6 is the never-ending industrial dub. I can't remember how long it is. It just
11 minutes.
11 minutes.
Chris likes to put that on when he wants to relax.
Well, yeah, I really like this EP. I think it's the best Bowie remix EP because it is an album in itself. But of course, for version 6, that stretches the patience. But the first 4 are at least cool. And Photex 1 is it's a different beast.
Oh.
Yeah. But version 1, the single version, that's the one that most people have heard of this.
The video, which stars Trent Reznor, is definitely a very memorable video from the 90s with Bowie.
Chasing Bowie through New York.
And Bowie, he really looks afraid
Yeah.
of Trent Reznor. And
Reznor really looks scary as well.
he looks, yeah, he does.
If you had him chasing after you, you would be scared as too.
You would.
There's lots of scary people in that video. The
But
taxi and on the street. And
Yeah.
Of course, it all ends with Bowie throwing himself behind the taxi as Trent Reznor pulls up a gun and starts shooting at him.
An imaginary gun,
Imaginary, yeah.
an air gun.
He's just holding air.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
The bullets are still peppering the taxi, though.
Very real.
Yeah. That's true.
And in the end, you get this sort of Halloween motley crew of people marching in the streets.
Yeah, it's a great video directed by Dominic for the first time for Bowie. Later did
Pretty Things Are Going to Hell.
yeah, and
Still
was
on the
actually
list.
nominated for an MTV Video Music Award, Best Male Video. I think it won.
I think it lost to Destiny's Child. Or All Saints.
All Saints.
I'm not sure Destiny's Child existed in '97.
Sorry, a bit too early.
Maybe we should take a listen to the single version, which is maybe just as, or maybe more recognizable than the album version is. So let's go.
Let's go.
Johnny's in America, no tags at the wheel. No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. Johnny's in America. Johnny wants a brain. Johnny wants to suck on the coke. Johnny wants a woman. Johnny wants to think of a joke. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. Johnny's in America. Johnny looks up at the stars. Johnny combs his hair and Johnny wants to be seeing cars. Johnny's in America. Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. Yeah, I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the worst. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. God is an American. 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 God is an American.
And there it flows until mix number 2, because all these mixes on the EP, they are mixed together.
Mm.
And yeah, that was the full single version, a minute or so longer than the edit used in the music video. And I think it's a masterpiece.
It
Perfect.
certainly is. I mean, normally when you have a single remix of a song or different remix than the original, or different from the edit, it usually doesn't work as well as the original one. It's very rare, I would say, that the remix beats the album version. I'm not sure if this is a better than the album version, but it is at least just as good, I would say.
Yeah, I also hold this higher rank than the original that is on the album. It has some elements that you also can listen on the live versions that kind of really works for the song.
I love them both, but I think if I'm pressed, I would say this one. And there are so many details, and I love the structure. There are 2 parts. The last part being the hypnotic with the bass and a lot of nice details. The God is an American, and the other is the verse, chorus, verse, chorus. But it builds so well, and in the last chorus, they just put on the put on the machine. Sounds like a factory starting up. Incredible punch just before the last part stops. Yeah. So, yeah. And the other versions, of course, by Trent Reznor, is interesting, but they are not as compressed with IDs as this one.
Put all their best into this. It's almost more. I mean, obviously, you have Bowie there, and there are elements from the original, but it's almost more like a cover version than a remix in a way.
Yeah, it's a real collaboration.
Could have been 9 Inch Nails with David Bowie.
Yeah. And the original, I'm Afraid of Americans, also, I would say, probably inspired by 9 Inch Nails. It kind of has elements of other 9 Inch Nails songs, or that type of industrial music.
And the oldest versions, the Showgirls and the Johnny Downloader versions, they are even more aggressive and primitive and industrial.
What version do you prefer? Leave us a comment below and let us know. Yes. So I think that's it for this track. We also have a podcast where we are discussing Earthling and other albums by Bowie and other artists. We have a Patreon where you can get early access to future albums we'll do. We only have 1 more track left on Earthling before we're done with this album. But if you want to support us, you can head over there. As I said, this is the second last track. We'll be back in a couple days with the last track on Earthling called Law, or Earthlings on Fire. Until then, you must all have a great day, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good night.